welcome back, Tribe Builders. This is Tanya Rooney, and I am really excited for today because this guy that I have on is like, I don't know, he's probably going to hate that I'm going to even say these kinds of things. I'm just because I think he's like, I don't know, he's built of rainbows because I love him so much. He is one of the reasons that I joined a short-term rental mastermind, and it was literally one day I was driving, listening to his podcast episode with this mastermind, and I was like, oh my God, I want to be in a room with this guy because he's just got so many cool things to say and he does really cool things. And I joined the group and then I kind of forcefully made him my friend, and now I get to talk to him whenever he picks up his phone and I need something. So, Mike, this is Mike Hicks. Like, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I can say I've never been described as being a ray of rainbows, but full of
You're
rainbows.
just something about you just magical. That's what I was
Okay.
getting at. Is like you are a magical human being because I know a lot of really cool people, but you are just like so nice. You offer help. You'll advise people in ways that like I mean the knowledge that you have. You've been in real estate for like I don't know, probably 30 years, 20 years,
I'm
something.
not that old. 25.
Okay, well, 25 years, yeah, whatever. Before that, I know that your parents kind of taught you some things. So you've been in real estate a really long time and you just give people time. And I find that to be magical because not everybody does stuff like that, but you know the difference it can make in people's lives because I've watched it. I've literally heard people tell me stories about you of how you've helped them. So that's the reason that I say those things is like, I think you're a magical human. And if more people were like you, it would be a very interesting world. So,
I think that's
anyways.
important. For me growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, and but my parents always gave back. But they always gave of their time, and that's
Mhm.
kind of how I grew up in scouting and youth group and key club. We volunteered and we gave of our time. We built our home schools and communities. It's just that's just the way I was raised. I had a lot of people helping me, and I don't mind passing along anything.
Yeah, and see, this is the reason humans like you are awesome. Like you are, I don't know, I just think you're lovely. So, can you tell my people like what you do? Like what makes you awesome?
Oh, I'm not awesome, but I like to get up and
You're
do
humble.
do crazy things. Just I guess being in spec new home construction and that realm for so long, it's just gotten to the point where you know I'm. It takes a little more to get me excited now. So I try to hang out and do unique things and just be different. I like just take off and hike on the Appalachian Trail or drive 2 hours for lunch in a shipping container. So that's kind of me. Just I just want to be doing different. Um,
Yeah.
and so after watching a lot of YouTube and that kind of thing, I thought I want to build a container home and a shipping container home. And so I just bought one and had it shipped to my office and started in the parking lot. It's just it all kind of sprang from that.
And so what does your business look like now? Because you don't build as often, or maybe you only build for yourself. I know you used to be a general contractor, but what does it look like now?
Yeah, so I haven't built for others, and I don't intend to. We used to do spec homes, and we do occasionally have some spec homes done. But this, I was telling somebody earlier, I had a friend call me and want me to build a house for them, and I said, I just don't do that. If I want to get up and not work tomorrow, then I'm not going to, and I don't
Mhm.
need somebody calling me and saying, "Hey, Mike, why aren't you here on my job today?" So that's why I just stay away from that stuff. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. But you've built a beautiful portfolio of short-term rentals, it seems.
yeah, yeah, we've done a few. So we have 10 short-term rentals. We've done 8 of those ourselves, and then we've purchased 2. Um, but yeah, we've done I guess a pretty cool portfolio of tree houses and A-frames, shipping container homes, and the latest was a mushroom style house that kind of mimics a hobbit house.
Yeah, and I find it to be so interesting because I'm way excited about some of the stuff that he has. And if somebody wants to Google the Mushroom House, like, or I mean, find it on the internet, where would they go to look at it?
You can find it on Instagram or TikTok for, I guess, for a few more days anyway on TikTok. But Instagram and let's see, hey, I mean YouTube, Instagram,
Okay.
Facebook at Wander Chat, and that's
Okay.
Wander.
And chat is CH, it's for
CHATT.
Chattanooga
Yeah,
because
like
that's where you
Chattanooga.
are. Yeah, so Wander Chat. So if you're listening, I honestly am telling you to pause it and go like check out the homes that he's talking about because they're really, really neat. What made you even start building in the first place?
In the beginning,
Yeah.
mm, I went off to college and thought I wanted to be a park ranger, game warden. I grew up in scouts again, and I love the outdoors and like being out in nature. And I just knew the whole time I went through school that that's what I wanted to do. And then when I went to college, it was a totally different experience, and the thought of, I guess the main reason I ended up not going through with being a park ranger or game warden was that the first few years you're placed somewhere rural, far away from where you grew up, far away from home, uh, and I wanted a family, and I thought, what woman is going to haul off and take off and go out in the woods and live with a game warden in Egypt, Bumble, and so I thought, well, I'm going to change career paths, and I switched over to business, and it's like I just really get frustrated with meaningless stuff. So, I'm in college taking archery to learn how to be a business major. And I'm like, it really just, it bothered me. So I left halfway through the semester and came home. And my best friend's dad, growing up, was a developer. And I'd worked for him starting about age 13. And, I'd been around development and been around construction. And that was probably my second love. And I went and had lunch with him, and I said, I want to build a house. And so at 19 years old, he gave me a lot and deeded it over to me, and wrote a note and just put the note in his desk so it wasn't recorded. I was able to take the lot and go to the bank, use that as collateral to build the home, and that was it.
Did he help you? I'm assuming he helped you build it too.
Not really. I mean, if I needed to call him, I could, but I had already made connections. I guess I mean, there's probably 6 months in between that, leaving school and starting the house, but uh, I had made a few connections and kind of I already had an idea of how it was put together. But it was just at that point figuring out who to call.
That's super cool. So, one of the things that I admire about you the most is you go to things like you network and you find the people that you need constantly. Do you feel like there was a time when you were like that, you figured that out, oh, I should go to this conference to meet these people, or have you kind of always thought that way?
No, I definitely haven't always thought that way, and I'll say it's the cheesiest or the dumbest thing that it was dumb luck. I mean, yeah, I was flipping houses and doing all the things in 2009. Everything went sideways, and you couldn't find money to buy these houses. And after at that point, 2010 to 13, there were a lot of good buys out there, but the banks weren't lending on them, and I was out of money because of the recession, and so I started looking for people to partner with. So we'd find a deal, and they would fund the deal, and I would do the work, and then we'd split it. That went on for a couple years, and the guy I was doing with, they decided they wanted to travel and not do the rehabs anymore. So uh, I had 4 houses under contract and had to figure out, okay, how am I going to fund these deals now that he's not there? So I just started. I'll back up a little bit. While I was working with them, they said, "Hey, this flipping Las Vegas is coming to Chattanooga. Let's go and see what it's all about." And this was 2013, and I picked up two things from that weekend, that 3-day weekend that we went to. I didn't join their mastermind, and I would not recommend that to anybody. Those are money sucks, but The two things that I picked up from that was join your REIA, your local real estate investor association,
Mhm.
and uh, private money. Use individuals' private money to fund your deals. So when, a few months later, when they decided they wanted to travel, and I had those projects under contract, I started going to my title companies that I had been using. I said, "Hey, I've got these four houses. They're excellent buys. Do you know anybody that will fund them?" And the third title company gave me a name, and I mean, he's been an amazing mentor and still funds my projects today. So
That's fantastic. So you just, I mean, literally, you just started asking around, and that's
yeah,
how you do all these deals.
well, when your feet were to the fire, you have to figure things out, and I didn't want to let them go. So that's the asking piece, but going to the RIA was the other thing. Meeting people at the RIA and being, I hear so many people talking about going to their RIA. Oh, I didn't get anything out of it. Well, every meeting is going to be a little different. But when you start showing up and you start being consistent, and when they ask if you have a deal, raise your hand and say, oh, tell them what you have or tell them what you're looking for. When you start speaking out at those meetings, the next thing you know, you're going to be speaking at those meetings. So you've got to get involved and be consistent. I don't, that's probably been the biggest thing that's helped me be successful is going to that RIA meeting. And, because that RIA meeting led me to Bill Cook and Pete Fortunato and all these people that I follow that teach creative deal structuring. And, um, without that, none of this would have happened.
I think that's awesome. So I feel like creative funding is kind of buzzy in a way because
It
people
is.
people talk about it a lot, but you've been doing it for years. Can you, if somebody doesn't know what the heck creative financing is, can you like give a quick like this is what that means?
Well,
I know
that's
it can mean a lot of things, Mike.
the
Like
great thing about real estate is it is what it is. It's creative, So
Mhm.
there's no rule. Bill Cook teaches a class called What Box because he said there is no box to be inside of when you're thinking about creating a deal or structuring a deal. The sky's the limit. I have 0% seller financing offers deals, that I've made, and people are like, well, how do you get that? I'm like, well, you've got to ask. If
What
you
does
don't,
seller financing mean?
the owner of the property has the property free and clear,
Mhm.
and they decide they want to sell it. They want too much for the property, so buyers A, B, C, and D walk past it, and here I come. I'll give them their price if I can get terms that suit me. I
Uh-huh.
don't mind overpaying on a piece of real estate if they're going to finance it at 0% and it cash flows 1,500, 2,000 a month, whatever it is.
Gotcha. I know what creative financing
Yeah.
is and I know what seller finance is, but wanted to point
Well,
it
there's
out. Thank
just
you.
you can't put a limit on just because the bank does it this way doesn't mean you have to do it this way.
Mhm. So do you have any bank loans at this point? Or I mean, you've been doing real estate, you said since let's just say since 2009. What is your relationship with
2001,
banks?
but I've got two left.
You have
Yeah, I've
two
got
bank loans and that's
two,
it. The
two
rest
left.
of
Yep.
your and you own, 10 short-term rentals. I mean, those are properties. I'm sure you own more stuff, but still you don't have bank loans on any of those.
No, we have a storage facility. It was financed with 5% interest from the seller that owned it. Um, we've got a commercial warehouse that was financed with 0% interest, and everybody else thought he was asking too much, but we were able to double the rents on the place, and I mean it's cash flowing amazingly.
And what makes you different than other people? Like how are you getting all these deals, Mike? Like how,
I'm not different. I just ask. I'm not afraid to ask. My dad was a mailman, and he would, he'd drive past all these houses all the time and see things. There might be a boat out in the yard, or and he would just ask, "Is that for sale? Or would you be interested in selling that?" And he brought home so many things that were just, it needed a little bit of work, so that's kind of where I get it. It needs a little bit of work. He brings it home and cleans it up and sells it, makes a couple $100. That was kind of the thing. And I would walk to the end of it. We had a long driveway, and he would pull stuff to the end of the driveway and set it out there. We were on a busy road, so people would see the stuff, stop and ask. I just loved going down there and listening to him negotiate. So it's just a lot of fun. It's just the same thing, different scale. So
Gotcha.
I've had the
So,
same mindset, even when we were out driving around, he wasn't on his mail route. They weren't afraid to just stop and knock on somebody's door. So I've had the same mindset with real estate. And I've, even houses here in town that I'm interested in, I've driven, when I can't reach the people, I've driven 2 hours to knock on their door before. It's
mhm.
very specific and targeted. I don't do that for a whole neighborhood, but if I see something and I feel like there's something there, I don't mind driving and putting the work in.
So can you tell me one of the most interesting, I know you have a lot of interesting stories. I've known you for a few years, so I've heard a lot of them, but and I love it. Can you tell me like one of the most like, whoa, no one else could make that deal work, but I did because of, this, and this. Like, and maybe you just drove up the driveway, exactly what we were talking about.
I mean, I'm not gonna say there's anything. I'm not doing anything special. I'm other than making an offer and
Mhm.
putting it out there. So you got to speak this stuff into existence. If you don't make the offer, if you don't stand up and say something, it's always going to be no. Bill talks about one that was a short sale, and it was a mobile home. Nobody could make it work. It was back in 2009, and all these other investors had already been out and talked to the guy. Well, they were able to renegotiate the property taxes, renegotiate the loan. That was when they were doing the restructuring of loans, and he got the payments down to where it worked and would still cash flow as a rental. He bought it subject to the seller's existing mortgage. And I mean, just all these little pieces, it's not one thing, it's five or six different things. And if you can master those things, it's unlimited what you can do. I've chosen not to dig that deep into all the little possibilities. I have a model that works for me. Could I buy more houses if I studied a little more and figured out those objections? Yeah, I'm sure. But I found what works for me, and if it doesn't, I just move on to the next one.
So have you had like a favorite deal that you've just been like, oh God, this was so cool because it was just, you got to put all your creative juices to work.
Mm, I don't know. I enjoy them all, and I think that's the biggest part of doing the deal. Is everybody talks about their checks. I like to put the deals together. That's what excites me.
Hmm.
But I can't think of one that stands out anymore. I mean, they're all a little fun. I can't think of one that that would be ex- spectacular or anything like that.
No, totally cool. Okay, and now so I'm thinking about all of this stuff that you're doing and you're just kind of like, yep, I just go do the thing. Like it seems pretty natural to you. Do you I feel like some business owners have self-limiting beliefs that just stop them completely. It seems like maybe you don't have any. Do you have self-limiting beliefs, Mike?
Of course, I do. I mean, you know, I, I I I grew up being told can't, never could, and I try to teach my kids the same thing. And I heard somebody say for the last weekend that say I tried is not a that's a negative word. You shouldn't use I tried. Um, so you tried or you did it. You did it and you failed, or it's not I tried. I don't know. Um, I don't like being in front of people. I don't like being in front of the room. And I know that you're sitting here smiling. I have to do it, but I hate, and this I don't even like saying I hate or I don't like to or
You
I'm
don't.
uncomfortable. I don't like using those words, but I despise being in a group of people having a conversation, unless it's about real estate. Then I can talk, but I don't like. I can't carry on a normal conversation. So I just said can't. I don't do well carrying on a normal conversation.
I think this is it's always funny to discover things like this about friends because you talk to me all the time, but we talk about real estate and I could talk about real estate till I'm blue in the face, so I get it. So that's the subject though that you could talk all the time about and in front of people.
Well, even then, I'm not going to say I'll ever be comfortable in front of a room. And I've gotten a lot better about being in the front of the room. But usually, if you find me at a seminar, I'm in the back corner, closest to the exit door, or on the side, closest to a door. I want to be to where I can see the whole room. I want to be. That's how I'm comfortable. I do not like standing up and talking in front of a group. I don't like being on the stage, but I feel like you talked about networking, and you can go to all the events you want, but if you're not getting in front of the people that you need to get in front of and talking to the people you need to talk to, you're defeating the point. If you're going to the REIA and not talking, if you're going to a seminar and not talking to people and letting people know what you do, you're not going for the right reason. There's value in what's being taught to you from the stage, but the mass the the value is coming from the networking that you do after the event, around the bar, around the dinner table. And for me, if I'm able to stand up and interject myself with a question that can not only draw an answer from an experienced person on the stage, but also let the room know what I'm doing, that's how I spark those conversations.
I love it because that's one of my favorite things I've ever learned from you is to get up and say what you're looking for that will also ask a question and then someone's going to come up to you afterwards and all just because you went to the microphone and asked the question, to the people on stage that were saying, does anyone have any questions?
Well, and I think so much of this is about getting in front of the room and getting in the room and asking those questions. And, you know, I finally had someone tell me about public speaking that if you run out of something to say, tell a story. So, what I started doing, I don't script my talks or my speeches. I put pictures in a slideshow, and
Hmm.
each one of those pictures is a story. So I'll tell this story because it goes along well with what we're talking about. But I was at a seminar in Tampa. There were 300 people in the room. It was right after COVID, so everybody was ready to go get back to seminars. And there was another 100 on the computer on Zoom. And they came around asking, or they, talked about it during the break that, hey, we're going to have a panel up here at 5 o'clock, and we're going to do a hot seat. You'll get to come up to the front and ask your question to these 5 experienced real estate investors. And they were all my friends. I knew every one of them. And, most of the people in the room I knew. Uh, it came to lunch and nobody had written down a question. So, I thought, okay, I write down on this paper, what's the best way to approach a private lender? So I get up there to the front of the room. They call me up there, the first question. I get up there to the front of the room and they let me ask my question. I asked these guys, how do you approach a private lender? And I hear a couple of people start giggling. It was my friends in the back of the room. They're like,
They knew.
they answered. And then I got back there and a couple of them knew. And then a couple of them were, why'd you ask that? That's what you do. And I said, well, what better way to get in front of 350 to 400 people than asking that question in front of it? And I funded our next treehouse build out of that conversation. So it's that those little prompts, and that's the best way to get out there, in my opinion, is to get in there and ask questions.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite story. I've told other people that story as well to say like, hey, if you're going somewhere, just ask the question because whether you know how to, talk to a private lender or not, if you were to ask that, now people know that you are looking for money because you just kind of prompted it. So it's my favorite beautiful thing.
Um,
I love it. Can you tell me? Actually, can you give me like a quick summary or like a quick idea of what does it look like if somebody has never borrowed money, but they have $50,000 sitting in their account and they're like, man, I kind of want to use this. How would somebody like you talk to them to say like, hey, yeah, I could use it on a project?
So, after I'll just go back to that conversation where I asked about approaching a private lender. I had people come up to me after, and I don't want to ever seem desperate for money. I'm not desperate for it, but
Mhm.
it is nice to have on hold, or available. So it's usually, I don't have anything right now, but if something comes along, how much would you be willing to invest? That way you're kind of, well, I don't know, I've got a little bit. Well, if I had a deal for 100,000, would that be something you could do? Okay, yeah, I could do that. Well, what if I came to one, or so if I come to you, or so if I have one for 200,000, I don't need to come to you. Well, no, I can still probably do that. So it's kind of filling them out and seeing where they are. But for somebody that's sitting back and that has $50,000 they want to put to work, it's the same thing. Having the conversation. I want to fill out and see. Okay, Tanya has $50,000. Does she need it back in 6 months? Does she need it back in a year? Um, what is she wanting to accomplish with this? So I know, okay, is this something that I could use long term for 15 to 20 years, or does she need it back quickly? If she's wanting it long term, we're going to set the rate a little bit lower and set it and forget it. If it's short term, we're going to raise that rate a little bit and get you a good return on your money and get you paid back within that year. But there's so many things that somebody that's never lent money before needs to do. A lot of due diligence. You don't just need to blindly lend money to somebody. You need to vet them. You don't want to just write them a check. I've seen so many people just write somebody a check and the deed not, a deed never get recorded, or uh, the borrower could skip town. I mean, you just don't want to. You want to close through a title company just like a bank would. You want to make sure that they have lender's title insurance. You want to make sure that there's no other mortgages on the property, unless the borrower said, hey, this is second position or third position or whatever,
Mhm.
that y'all worked out. But you want to make sure that you're secured.
So they should secure it. So if I'm going to give my money to you, I should expect to get some kind of security afterwards of like, here's a mortgage, here's, a deed or whatever. I'm tied to it though somehow.
Yeah. Promissory note, security deed.
Okay. Thank you. I like
In
it's really
Georgia,
fun.
it's going to be different. Yeah.
It's yes, it is different state to state, but knowing like don't just blindly give your money to anybody. It doesn't matter if you know, like, and trust them, you still should have some kind of piece of paperwork. Because what happens if that person gets hit by a bus tomorrow? Like, are they going to know your $50,000 is with them? Because you'll have to ask for it, but if there's no paperwork to go with it, then you've got nothing. You just gave somebody a $50,000 gift.
In the past, I have created my own notes and mortgages. I mean, I've got Word documents, and I have done that and recorded the deeds. But that's not there. I've seen too many people lose money by doing that, and the borrower not recording it.
Mhm.
So I'm just at this point, I'd rather the title company do it, and that way everybody feels
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I do the same thing whenever we borrow money. We're just like, here, this is where it is. You can get, or here's the proof from the county. You can actually see that it's out there, but knowing that it's safe and somewhere. That's kind of the whole entire point. So awesome. Um, okay, if I've got like so a lot of people that listen to me talk on this podcast are short-term rental people. How does somebody with a short-term rental use creative money? Like how could they like whether they just need a down payment or they need the whole entire thing? Like what does that look like?
I think there's a lot of things that could be done. One of the things that I see is borrowing from an IRA to do your build out. And when I say build out, furnishings and because there's a lot of people with 25, 30,000 sitting in an IRA, and that's money that could be utilized to buy the furnishings and those kinds of things. Again, that's a question you need to talk out with your lender, because a lot of times, especially if you're just hosting for somebody else, how are you securing that money? Um, but that's a way that I've seen that you could put a small dollar IRA to work. You know, you could put it to work as the down payment and do a joint venture with the IRA or the private lender, um, or they could put up the whole thing. It's just a matter of the conversation and the lender. And again, after you do it, you've got to build out a pool of lenders. You don't want just one. I've got lenders that want long term. I've got lenders that like short term, and we use our short term lenders to build the short term rentals, and then we refi with a long term lender. So
Lots of options is what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah. Again,
Okay, and
you
then
can't have a box. You got to there's no box to think outside of, because you just, okay, how can I get this
just make
done?
it up.
Let's make it happen.
Okay, and you just said IRA. I know I have a 401k. How do I know if I can lend out of it? What does that look like?
So you'll have you're not going to go to Charles Schwab and get a Roth IRA that you can lend out of. It'll need to be with a custodian. Advanta is a good one. Um, I was with Quest. Quest has just been bought out, so I'm still not 100% on board with the new company, but um, it needs to be a custodian that will manage self-directed IRAs that you can purchase real estate with. You
Gotcha.
can
So
also,
self-directed
yeah,
is the
self-directed.
key though to that, right?
Yeah. Well, and there are self-directed IRAs with Schwab and those guys, but they're you can direct it to which stocks you want or mutual funds. But this one has to be, you have to be to where you can use it to buy real estate.
And is it safe to do something like this, Mike?
I I think it's great. Yeah, I mean, again, the custodian is making sure that your documents are in line. Your custodian will review the documents before you're not allowed to sign for your IRA. So the custodian signs for you, and then you sign it as read and approved. But uh, the title company sends in the documents. They're recorded. Everything's done. It's just titled in the name of your IRA instead of you. So
And
yeah, it's safe.
can you direct it to yourself? Like
No,
I know the 401k you can only direct a certain portion. An IRA you can't direct to yourself, right?
no,
You have to direct it. So you have an IRA right now that you direct to other people because you can't put it to your wife, you can't put it to your kids. You have to put it outside of, the
yeah.
Hicks name, right?
Well, it's weird, and there's a lot of stipulations about prohibited transactions and who's prohibited. But business acquaintances, if you're in a business relationship with somebody, you're not. That's a prohibited transaction to lend them money. Uh, and I'd have to look, but I believe you can go. So you can't go up or down on the family tree, but you can go linear. So I could lend to my brother or sister,
Hmm.
but I can't lend to my kids or my wife or my parents.
Okay. Um, that's awesome.
Double
Can
check
you?
that, because it's been a minute since I've looked at the prohibited list. But
No, and I think the reason I'm even asking these questions is there's kind of like I'm really excited about this. I honestly, it didn't dawn on me. Oh my God, me and Mike can just talk about creative financing because this is like one of my favorite subjects, especially with you, because you think completely different than a lot of people do. So I'm just kind of pointing out that there's actually ways to do stuff like this and that you haven't, like, I mean, you as in being anybody that's listening, you haven't even thought of because the stuff that you've taught me over the years, I'm just like, I didn't even know some of this stuff was possible. So I mean, you didn't know this stuff either. Have you just stumbled along? Has somebody specifically taught you? Or is this just a culmination of all the different events that you've gone to and conferences to learn stuff like this?
so I'll tell a funny story real quick, and it goes back to the self-directed IRAs. I was inspecting for the city here. I was building inspector like 2006, 7, and I had this man from Tampa, Florida, that was rehabbing a house up here. And I was asking him questions because I said, I'm trying to buy rental properties and things too. Can you tell me a little bit about how you do it? And he's like, how about I buy you breakfast tomorrow? And he comes in, he's like, I want to tell you about this self-directed Roth IRA. He said, you need to do it, and you need to do it now, and it's the best thing ever. And he was telling me about it, and I was so excited. And I went home and I told my grandmother, because she was the only one in the family that dealt with stocks. She was a statistician and just super smart. And I was telling her all about it. And she's like, "No, that's not real. That's not a real thing." And she said, "It sounds like he's trying to scam you." So I'm like, I think about that, and I'm like, man, I wish I would have talked to that guy a little, or learned a little more, and done that back then, because I waited to 2017 to start it. Um,
Oh, yeah.
so, I mean, how many years of contributions did I miss? And it's like, but yes, it's going to the seminars, going to the REIA. The thing about the REIAs is somebody different is coming every month, and they might be
Mhm.
talking about short-term rentals, or they might be talking about apartments, or warehousing, or long-term rentals, or rehabbing, or whatever. They're coming with so many different topics, and then they usually have flyers of a seminar that's going on in Atlanta, or a cruise, a real estate cruise. And I like to go to these events to where they talk about 10 to 15 different products and projects, and there's so many different avenues to take in real estate. You just got to pick yours and go. So, have two or three. You don't have to chase them all, but you
Uh-huh.
can have a couple.
I think that's awesome because again, I've learned a ton of stuff from you, and like the way I, maybe go to conferences or show up to things, or the way I ask questions is completely different after learning from you of like, oh, well, he said it was possible, so I should do that.
Oh yeah, it's all possible.
Yeah, it is. Okay, can you tell me, have you ever met somebody like, I mean, you meet randomly, you do have a random life, and I say that because I know you'll just drive up somebody's driveway and start talking to somebody because that's the kind of human you are. But can you tell me tell me a story about somebody you did meet that became a friend, became an advisor, that it was like in the most unexpected kind of way that you even connected with them?
I guess, probably the most unexpected way would be Paul Cummings, and he was a motivational speaker in sales. He would go to Toyota and Ford, and create the insurance companies, and speak to them about sales, and sell his program to you know 100,000 employees company wide. And I met him looking at a house, just on the other side of the mountain where it was a farm. And I started talking to him, and I'm just like more and more enamored by him and his story. He had a stroke, and had aphasia, and lost the ability to talk. Um, so he was here, a professional public speaker, that had made millions, and now can't talk. He worked and worked and worked until he got his speech back. And he's just really inspired me to do more. So every time I talk to him, he gives me a nugget, a little thing. And he's the one that told me to tell stories. So he's an amazing person, and I'll give you his information if you want. Maybe be a guest, but he speaks well now, and now he's helping others with aphasia.
That's awesome.
Big turnaround for his life. He's just created a wedding and event venue on that property that we were looking at.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really fun when you meet somebody that just changes the way you think about things, you know?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing about networking. What's the best advice someone has given you that you've actually used?
Mm. I guess the that first mentor that became the lender and mentor. We would ride around and look at properties, and that was the with him. He would, if I called him and said, "Hey, I need to borrow some money to buy this house," he said, "All right, just come by and pick me up at the office, and we'll go ride around and look at it." I mean, we never once went in the interior of a home. We drive by. He said, "It looks good to me." And, he's always got these little nuggets. He'll say, "Son, if I told you we were going to eat that elephant right there, how would we do it?" And I'd say, "I don't know, how would we?" He said, "One bite at a time." But we were riding around one day, and he said, I was still working a full time job at night at that point, third shift, and he just looks over. He says, "Son, you know that job's costing you money, right?" And I was like smacked in the face. I was like, you know, you're right. And I turned in my notice the next day. So,
Shut up. That's fantastic.
you know,
Huh. That's like probably one of the best things I'm writing down right now because I've never thought of it that way, but it's totally true, and he just hit you on the right moment, I guess.
yeah, I mean, you know, if you focus your energy on, if I spent the time that I was working at that job on creating more deals and more deal flow, I mean, yeah, he's 100% right. I mean, I was doing enough to offset that income already, and I just had this fear. You know, it goes back to that limiting belief and the limiting mindset. I grew up hearing my mom tell me that I needed a full-time job with benefits to support my family, and that's what I did. You know, every time I would get going good in real estate and think, okay, it's time to leave, I'd hear that. You know,
Isn't it crazy how something we know to be untrue, even something we know that we could tackle, we just like revert to the, I don't know, 15-year-old version of us. Of like, oh yeah, no, 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 but this person taught me that you're supposed to have this and you should have good benefits. You know, you should work for the government or work for the post office or work for the city. That's what I grew up
well,
around. It's like you work for that because they have great benefits, great bennies. Oh,
it's easier to see it as untrue now because nobody offers benefits anymore. You know, the pay's not what it used to be. Nobody works 30 years and retires anymore.
hmm
You know, it's just not the way it is. Unless you're, you know, UPS or even the railroad or a government job. You know, and
yeah. See.
I've worked at all three of those. But uh,
So you've been fine without having a full-time job and benefits. You've still managed to figure it out.
yeah, I mean, you have to.
It's
And now,
true.
you know, now I tell people I'm unemployable. Uh,
Oh gosh, you are. Yep, I understand. Honestly, a lot of entrepreneurs are. You're just like, oh god,
I
I'd
don't think
totally
you
be
can go back to
terrible.
work after doing it this long. It's just, you know, I did turn in my first job application today that in probably 12 years. Uh, and I'm like looking at it. I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm going to work at Scout Camp for 4 weeks this summer.
Oh,
$200 a week. So,
gotcha. So it's not like a job. It's like
no,
a
not a
camp
job.
counselor job.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it. Um, all right. So if you had one piece of advice for somebody that is that's kind of new and maybe they just don't have all the people around them because you've got 25 years of people around you at this point, what kind of advice would you tell somebody, or would you just say go to a RIA? If maybe that's your advice.
Well, I always tell people to go to the RIA, and I always tell people to go to networking events and go to seminars. You know, when I was first starting out, I was going to one a month, and I think you know those are important to building relationships and building careers. But my number one piece of advice, you know, look, we're all human. We've all made mistakes, but always do right by people. If you don't, it will come back to you. Always do right by people. There's no amount of money worth screwing somebody over. It's not worth it. Always do right by people, and people will keep coming to you. So, and that's not just in borrowing money or lending money, or that's if you're doing a deal with somebody. Um, you know, and that's what I'm gonna say. I've done deals with people that didn't go right. You know, it didn't sell for as much as we thought it would. It didn't. You know, the rehab cost more than we thought it would, and you know, both parties left losing money. But if you were honest and upfront about it, you can leave and go to sleep at night and feel right about it. So always do right by people.
I think that's a perfect thing to close out on because, yeah, it's awesome. It doesn't need any additions. If somebody wanted to find out more about you, where should they go?
I'd say TikTok, but again, I guess it would probably already be gone by the time this episode is released.
I
But
don't know.
yeah,
What's your Instagram?
Instagram is Find Your Repurpose.
Awesome. And just a
I'm on
reminder, it's also
TikTok,
Wander Chat. It's you're finding your repurpose on TikTok as well.
Instagram, and TikTok, and then
Mhm.
Wander Chat is on Instagram and TikTok as well as Facebook. And then YouTube is Mike Does. Now I need to get on there and post some.
I like going back to some of the videos you did on YouTube. Makes me chuckle. So I'll put this stuff in the show notes. Definitely go check him out. And if yeah, if you have any questions or anything about Mike, definitely reach out. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. Like I know you're just like I said, you're magical in ways because you give the heat. And I think anybody that has a conversation with you knows it. And is, there's tons of pieces of proof out there. So thank you for being the human you are. And yeah. For the folks that are listening, if you like this episode, like it, review it, share it, do all of the cool things to make more people know about it. And yeah, thanks for listening this week. Bye, guys.